What's up, everybody? This week's REI Deal Breakdown is a property that we bought and wholesaled in San Diego, California. So I'm going to talk about how I found the deal, what the economics looked like, and what some of the challenges were. So before I get into that, if you're new to this YouTube channel, if you can like the video and subscribe to my channel, it would really help me a lot. My goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers in the next 90 days, and the best way to help me doing that is by simply subscribing, liking the video. If you're watching this on Instagram and you're watching this on Facebook or wherever you're finding this, if you do get value from this video, if you can like it, please, and then also comment on it and share it. That's how we get this. I'm trying to get this video into as many people's devices as possible or desktops as possible. So it would mean a lot if you could do that. So today I'm talking about a property we did in San Diego, California. This was a wholesale deal, and I'll tell you exactly how we found the deal. So did some text message marketing out here. Text messaging is a great channel. It still works as of 2022 when I'm making this video. And we got some leads that came in, and I remember this lead like it was yesterday. Got a text from the seller, and this is back before I had the texting outsourced and automated. I was doing it myself because I needed to learn it before I could teach it and outsource it. So I saw the response was like, hey, I inherited this house, definitely want to sell it, let's get on the phone. Ended up talking to the seller, and it was in City Heights, so it was in not the worst area, but not the best area. But I probably wouldn't walk around there after 7 p.m. But anyway, a lot of investors like to buy there, a lot of activity there. So I remember the seller's name was Walter, and if he's watching this, Walter, you're a great guy. And he was a pretty challenging guy to deal with, to say the least. So I remember we met. He didn't want to meet at the house because there was a tenant there, so then we met down the street at a Starbucks, and we met for like an hour and just kind of shot the shit. And I got to know him, he got to know me. He was really tough negotiator, like was not a knucklehead at all, and he was not easy to negotiate with. So I didn't want to like kind of spill my candy right away and like give him an offer and then just like, have that be out in the open. So I slowed down the negotiation, and I remember he wanted an offer ultimately, and I'm like, I got to give the guy an offer. And this was actually before the market went gangbusters. And I made him a pretty conservative offer. And I was like, hey, I think I offered him like $275 or $280, which is like insane. I mean, if I made that offer now, the sellers would laugh me out of the room. But anyway, I made that offer, and he was like, no way, no how. That can't do, that's too low. So I said, no worries, it's all good. Let's just stay in touch. He wasn't selling anytime soon because he just had a tenant in there and it was whatever. And I knew this was a good follow-up. I knew in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is a good lead to follow up with. So every single month, I would follow up with him personally. I would personally follow up with him on his cell phone, and he usually would ghost me. He would not answer. He would not respond. Kept following up with him, I followed up with this guy for 9 months, probably sent him, 35 text messages and voicemails and video calls, and you name it, I probably did it, except for knocking on his door, which I would have done. And he lived down in like Chula Vista. I think he lived in Chula Vista, so he lived like 20 minutes from the property. And I was just like a badger to try to get this property. And I remember he was like, I think 9 months later, he's like, yeah, I want to sell. I can't, your just offer's too low, but if you could do more, I might be interested in selling. So I was like, fine. So we actually met up again, and we met at another Starbucks, and he was like, hey man, I need more money for the property, blah, 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 blah. He wasn't really shopping my offer around that much, so he was a pretty stand-up guy with that. But the market during that time ended up going up a lot, and I obviously could pay more money. So I said, listen, let me go check the property out. So we actually met at the property. I walked the property, and it was a beater. Definitely wasn't a great condition, but there was people living in there, and it was functional. There's the water was running, and it wasn't like falling over, but it definitely needed some work. It was an old property. It was a Spanish style house. And if I'm rambling here, I apologize. I'm just trying to share as much of the details as I can, because a lot of gurus, and I wouldn't call myself a guru, but a lot of people just like say high level things and don't actually give you the specifics. I'm telling you the facts here. So anyway, we ended up coming close, and he was like, I think I offered him $330, and he was like, I need more. And I'm like, well, what would get you to sell the house? Because at that point, I'm like, all right, like let's see where we're at here. If we're that far apart, probably should list it. Anyway, he's like, I don't know, 340. So then I asked, if you're in sales, this is the money question here. If I were able to insert the blank, pay your price, what would your next steps be? And he's like, dude, I'd move forward at 340. I was like, okay, cool, great. I ran my numbers. I came back. I said, listen, you said if you got 340, you could move forward, right? So I was like kind of making sure that he wasn't full of crap. And he's like, no, I'll do that. So he accepted the offer, but then I tried to get him to sign right away, and he didn't want to sign. For some reason, he had an attorney, which I found out, which I thought in California that didn't exist, but apparently it does sometimes. So anyway, first time we met to try to sign the contract, he said, no. So then I met him a week later, followed up with him again at another Starbucks, shocker here, And he signed the contract, and I was like, oh yeah, we're in business right now. So immediately took the contract back and threw it out to I actually hit up a friend of mine because I wholesaled him a house, and he walked it. He didn't like the property. The numbers didn't work. So then I said, all right. So I threw it out to then my main list of people, and had an absolute monster open house. There was probably 10, 12 people there. And there were people there left, right, and center of this property. It looked like there was a freaking block party going on. And I ended up selling the property to a buyer, and got a very, very good assignment fee. It was like a $70K deal. And the buyer did everything they said they were going to do. They were really easy to work with. Good friend of mine today, Johnny. And so I thought we were good. I'm like, okay, we signed it, all good. We're going to close. You got the lender lined up. We're all set to go. All of a sudden, dun, 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 the obstacles came up. And this seller ended up having a attorney who just represented the trust, because it was like a quasi estate sale, but it was in a trust, so it was a little complicated. And the attorney combed through my contract, and I fucked up big time here. I printed out just a random California contract that wasn't like the CAR, which is California Realtor whatever. And it said in the contract, I didn't read it, which is insane of me. I do this now. I didn't read the contract I sent the guy, and in the contract it said, buyer will show sufficient proof of funds 48 hours after this contract is signed. So I didn't do that. Not that I didn't have the money, but I just didn't do that. So he was he texted me, and we already had the contract to sign. And he's like, hey dude, I haven't seen your proof of funds yet. WTF, my attorney's pissed. What's going on here? And I'm like, oh man, we're about to make 70 grand on this thing, and this guy's giving me a hard time. I'm like, shit. So I ended up sending him a letter with money in it, an account with a lot of money in it. It was actually a private lender's account, but same shit. And I said, hey, this should be good. And I obviously blurred out the account number and the routing number because I don't want that guy knowing my shit. And he's like, why is this redacted? And then he sent it to the attorney, and the attorney's like, well, this is redacted. What the hell is this? Is this a scam? And it was this whole thing. So the attorney started to threaten to try to advise him to basically potentially walk away. And I was not going to lose this fucking deal over something stupid like this. So I'm like, no effing way. There's no way I'm doing this. He started getting pushing back a little bit. And man, it was stressful. And I'm like, I don't want to lose this deal. This is a smoking deal. I've been following up with this guy for 9 months. There's no way I'm letting this thing die. So, the attorney started to get aggressive. I called her, and she was not very nice, to say the least. And I get it. She's an attorney. But I was like, I'm going to have to get my own attorney now, because they're just trying to potentially back out of this thing. And I've got to make sure. So I ended up hiring an attorney to represent me. Expensive, obviously well worth it. And we ended up fighting a little bit, and ended up sending them another proof of funds letter that apparently was good. Actually, no. I had to send them my account with money in it. That's what happened, because we sent them another letter with proof of funds, and they said, this is no good. And I'm like, well, what do you want? And he's like, I just want to see a picture of your account with the money in it, and we're good. So I ended up sending him a picture of the account with the money in it. The attorney was satisfied all of a sudden, and I said, all right, well, let's get this thing to the closing table. Then they brought up this other crazy thing. There was something fucked up with the person I assigned it to. His LLC that was totally fine, but then the attorney wanted to see something, and the whole thing had all this drama. And long story short, we ended up getting the deal done, closed, worked out, and made some good money on it. So what's the point of the story? What is the lesson here? So number one, the fortune is truly in the follow-up. If you're not following up with hot leads, you're missing out on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Second lesson, every deal is not going to go smooth, right? Most properties that we do, there's going to be red tape, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be title issues, there's going to be objections, there's going to be fucking nut jobs getting involved. So you got to anticipate these things, right? And now I know this is usually what happens when you do deals. And honestly, at that time, this was 2 years ago, I did a bunch of deals. Probably at that point, I don't know, 65, 70 deals. I have no idea, but a lot. And I still had this mindset where I was like, oh, well, every deal should be smooth and blah, 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 blah. And, after that deal, I'm like, for now on, I got blinders on, and I'm not going to get excited until the money's in my account. So anticipate the obstacles, because they certainly will be there. And when they show up, don't be surprised, because it's normal. You got to make sure, another lesson here is, well, besides following up and anticipating obstacles, don't be a dummy like me and just not read a contract. I mean, that was a terrible habit that I, fortunately have fixed. But I printed out a contract and didn't read the fine print that said buyers should provide proof of funds within 48 hours. I could have literally deleted that. It's a fucking contract. You could have it say whatever it wants. And I could have literally deleted that because it wasn't didn't need to be in there. And it would have made the whole thing go way smoother. So make sure that you know what contracts you're signing. And then the fourth lesson, or the whatever lesson number I'm on here, if you get into hot water and you think it's worth it, most likely it is, hire a freaking attorney to CYA, cover your ass, because the last thing you want to do is lose deals when you can win them, right? So I hired an attorney. He was a couple $1,000s. He saved the deal. He represented me, so I know I had some leverage, because a lot of attorneys, and I know this by doing dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of deals a year in New York, an attorney doesn't want to talk to the consumer or the investor. The attorney wants to speak to the attorney for the most part. They don't like speaking to people who are not attorneys. I don't know why. It's weird. But when you get an attorney to represent you, if it gets hairy and then the other person has an attorney, it's just a lot smoother. They can kind of talk their attorney language, which is, I don't know what it is. But sometimes you got to lawyer up. So hopefully you got some value from this. This one went a little bit long because I was just kind of sharing so many details here. So if you got value from it, give it a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're on social, if you can like it on social media, share it with people. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.